The first creature to get drunk wasn't actually human. It wasn't sitting in a bar, celebrating with friends, or raising a glass of beer. It happened millions of years before the first city was built, before farming, and long before humans learned to write. In fact, some scientists believe this accidental discovery may have quietly influenced the course of human history itself. So, when did humans actually start drinking alcohol? The answer doesn't begin inside an ancient brewery or a forgotten kingdom. It begins with a single piece of overripe fruit lying on the floor of an African forest. Around 10 million years ago, there were no humans, no villages, no kings, no civilization. Dense forests covered much of Africa, and our distant primate ancestors spent nearly every waking hour searching for food. Survival depended on finding enough calories before something else found them first. Then, nature created something unexpected. As ripe fruit fell from the trees and remained on the forest floor, wild yeast slowly fed on its natural sugars. Over time, the fruit began to ferment, producing small amounts of ethanol, the same alcohol found in modern beer and wine. To those primates, it wasn't alcohol. It was simply another meal. But fermented fruit had one important advantage. It released a much stronger smell than fresh fruit hanging from the trees, making it easier to locate through dense vegetation. Even better, it was packed with valuable calories. During times when food was scarce, being able to detect that scent could mean the difference between eating and going hungry. Without realizing it, our distant ancestors may have been consuming tiny amounts of naturally fermented fruit millions of years before the first human civilization ever existed. That possibility inspired evolutionary biologist Robert Dudley to propose what's now known as the drunken monkey hypothesis. His idea was surprisingly simple. Early primates may have evolved to recognize the smell of ethanol because it helped them locate ripe, calorie-rich fruit more efficiently. The theory is still debated, and many scientists believe human evolution was shaped by far more than a single factor. But whether Dudley is completely right or not, his work raises an intriguing possibility. Our relationship with alcohol didn't begin when humans invented brewing. It may have started naturally, deep inside prehistoric forests, millions of years before we ever learned how fermentation worked. But eating naturally fermented fruit is very different from intentionally making alcohol. At some point, humans stopped waiting for nature to do the work. They learned how to control fermentation themselves. The real mystery is when that happened. For decades, archaeologists believe they already knew the answer. First came farming, then surplus grain. Only after that did people accidentally discover brewing. It sounded perfectly logical, until one discovery changed everything. That discovery came from Raqefet Cave in northern Israel. At first, it looked like an ordinary prehistoric shelter, but beneath its dusty floor, archaeologists uncovered evidence that had remained untouched for nearly 13,000 years. Several stone mortars carved into the bedrock contained microscopic traces of wild barley and wheat that had been soaked, sprouted, and fermented. This wasn't spoiled food. It wasn't an accident. It was brewing. Even more surprising, the people who made it, the Natufians, weren't farmers. They had no cultivated fields and gathered every grain from the wild. Brewing under those conditions would have taken enormous effort, which raises an obvious question. Why make beer before farming even existed? One possible answer lies at Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. Built nearly 11,600 years ago, this site contains enormous stone pillars weighing over 20 tons. Somehow, hunter-gatherers built one of the world's earliest monumental structures, long before the pyramids or Stonehenge. But archaeologists weren't just impressed by how it was built. They wanted to know why. Many researchers believe Göbekli Tepe wasn't a city at all. Instead, it may have been a gathering place where different groups met for rituals and enormous feasts. Excavations uncovered huge quantities of animal bones, and some large stone vessels may even have been used to prepare fermented drinks. If that's true, alcohol wasn't just something people enjoyed. It may have helped bring communities together long before civilization itself. The story doesn't end there. Nearly 9,000 years ago, in Jiahu, China, people created a remarkable fermented drink using rice, honey, grapes, and hawthorn fruit. It wasn't beer or wine as we know them today, but it proved that early humans were already experimenting with fermentation in different parts of the world. By the time ancient Egypt emerged, alcohol had become part of everyday life. Beer was consumed daily, offered to the gods, brewed at home, and even given to workers as payment. What had once been an accidental natural process had become an essential part of civilization. So, when did humans start drinking alcohol? The truth is, we'll probably never know the exact moment. What began with naturally fermented fruit in prehistoric forests slowly evolved into one of humanity's oldest traditions. From Raqefet Cave to Göbekli Tepe to Jiahu, and finally ancient Egypt. Every discovery reveals another step in that journey. Today, every glass of beer or wine carries a history stretching back thousands of years. Because the story of alcohol is really the story of humanity learning to transform nature into culture. And it may all have started with a forgotten piece of fruit lying on the floor of an ancient forest. If you enjoyed this journey into history, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more fascinating stories from humanity's past. Thanks for watching.